Hello and welcome back to the Games Kingdom. Today we're going to have another playthrough of a new Kickstarter that I recently acquired, and that is Dwellings of Eldervale, a game by Luke, Laurie and Breaking Games. So on the previous game I played the Elves of Briardale, and this time I'm going to be playing the Pirates of Nightmare Cove. Now they're special sort of rules, if you like. Each faction has a sort of set of special rules that certain sort of meeples stroke characters like the dragon, the warrior, the wizard and all the generic workers can do. They have different ones for each faction. On this one, the warrior's aggression is that I may join battles from adjacent realms without actually moving into the realm where the battle is, and if I lose the battle, the warrior does not have to move to the underworld, which is quite a good thing because you get to add the dice in the battle without fear of losing the actual meeple from the board for when you're sort of regrouping. And the wizard, you may choose to place your wizard in a realm occupied by one of your own units, which is not normally the case. The only time you get to put a meeple of any type into a realm of another meeple of yours is if they are joining a battle and then they end up being in there for potentially the rest of that turn, but until you're regrouping, unless obviously there is another battle that you can join in later in the round, either yours or somebody else's. And so as I say, each faction has their own specific sort of rules for some of the meeples in the game. So that, as I say, these are the ones for this particular game, so we'll see how they pan out. The ghost works obviously exactly the same. They start with all of their meeples on the board. You roll a dice, and depending on what you roll, you pick the leftmost available unit, and they place them on the board where it tells you on the card that's under the same value of dice roll. You then put that card into the discard pile. You draw a new card for their next turn, and then you sort of take the actions and it plays out as such. So they don't take anything, sort of gain any benefits if they go to any of the ruin tiles. So like the dungeon, they don't get to build realms by going in the dungeon. They get building, they do realms by it's saying such on the cards, along with other actions. The same with the fortress. Normal players, if you go there and you spend 2 resources of any type, you can change it for 2 gold coins. The mage tower, you can do a similar thing. You can change 2 resources and you get 3 new magic cards, and then you have to discard one from your hand. Doesn't have to be one of those that came as the reward for going on to that particular tile, but you just have to discard. And then obviously at the end of the actual turn, when you're regrouping, you have to have less than 7 cards in your hand. You start with 5. The portal, as previous, you can sort of get a new worker, but you still have to obviously pay for them. So you could go here, instead of waiting to regroup, you could go onto the portal and you can pay the resources for that particular new unit to come out and be used in your ready area, be used later in the same turn, but you still have to be able to pay the cost. And then finally the mill, again you still have to have a sort of set of resources so that you can actually spend, but you can then dwell in one of the realms that you've currently got a unit, a worker. But as I say, you have to place a unit here first, and then it has to be a different realm because you can't build a dwelling in any of the ruined areas, only on the other tiles that are in the game from the start. And then obviously we've got monsters and things that could come out, and initially this is the setup for the game, and we've got 1 monster to come out onto the board, and it is the Beast of Chaos. and that has 4 dice when you get to battle it. At the end of the battle with the Beast of Chaos, whether you win or not, every unit that fought the Chaos Beast has to go into the underworld. So that's quite a nasty unit to be able to sort of fight against, because whether you win or lose, you're going to lose your actual units to the underworld. So I mean, you get a sword for every unit that goes to the underworld. You get a sword, but obviously you're hoping that you're going to keep your units on the board, because when you're regrouping, they get to actually do actions on your starting base card, and any other cards that you pick up during the game, you can then use those when you're regrouping, and you get various actions and or resources or magic cards and things. So and magic cards are also classed as resources, so at the time when you want to give up 2 resources or 3 resources to do some of the actions on the tiles, you can actually use your magic cards if you don't think that those magic cards are going to be of benefit during that particular round or even the whole game. So we'll crack on and see how this one goes. So my first placement is going to be over here, and I'm going to take this reward, which gives me potentially 2 potions when I cash it in. So when you go into a realm tile, if there's more than 1 stack, you can pick from one of those stacks, not both. And then obviously once the stacks are gone, so if this particular tile here had no stacks on it because they'd all been claimed during a round or earlier phases of the game, then you simply get what's on the icon on the tile. But as I say, there are so many tiles in the game. There are 3 for each faction used within the game. So if you've got a 5-player game, you'll be using 3 for each of the sort of factions and their particular sort of element in the game, and then obviously the dungeon tiles. So the more players you get, the more tiles there are, so the bigger the land will become. And you end the game in one of 2 ways. Either the last tile is placed on the board from the sort of available stack, and then you play a round from that player who placed it, and then they get to take the last go of the game, and then you do the scoring. And the other way, very similar, but the first person to build their 6th dwelling, so they have no more dwellings left to put out, then that starts also the end of game turn sequence, and again it goes around from that player, and that player gets the final sort of go, and then you again do the end of game scoring. So we'll crack on with the ghost's turn. So we roll a dice, and we see that's a 5, so it's the middle stack. So it takes this and it places it in a tile that is adjacent and up to the right from where the watcher is. Now the watcher goes, every time I place a unit, the watcher moves into the same realm, and that's the only thing that the watcher is there for. It's not a unit in the game for fighting or doing anything else other than just saying when the card is played or looked at for the ghost turn, you base it on the tile that the watcher is in, and then you place the unit from the ghost of Eldervale into a unit. So that's going to go into there, and you also, on this card, it says place a new realm. So we place a new realm tile, and it's another monster tile. We'll put that up there, and that is that's either going to be the storm or it's going to be the iron golem. So we'll just check through the actual book and see which one that is going to be. And we've got the, we'll just check which of the realms that actually is. that is the order. I believe that's going to be potentially be the golem. Yep, that's going to be the iron golem. So that comes out again on the board. These bases are quite nice. They will make a noise every time they move around the board if you turn them on. And then we obviously have to put a set of tokens on there, treasure tokens, in case anybody goes onto it later in the game. So that's set up as such. So that golem is going to sit there, and it's going to obviously attack something if it can rush in, which it can, because it can rush into where the dungeon is straight away. If I wanted to, I could join into the battle by moving my normal worker unit in there, but I'm not going to. So that is invulnerable. Workers add no battle dice in a battle with the iron golem, and spells may not be used in a battle with it. So basically that worker gets nothing to add in, so it's automatically going to lose. So that will go into the underworld, and the iron golem stays where it is. And depending where I place a unit, it may move again. So obviously I've got to be very careful where I can go. I can't actually go into a hex that I'm already in currently, because my wizard is the only one that can do that in my faction, and that's not been brought out yet. I haven't paid for that to come out. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take a couple of the swords, because they can be added in and used as extra battle dice. So on things like that, if the worker was fighting, if my worker was fighting the iron golem, and I couldn't add any battle dice in because it was a worker, I could spend swords and use swords instead, because they are not classed as worker dice. So again, because I've moved over here, the Ghost Watcher comes across as well, and we put a new card out, we roll a dice, we get a 6, so we've got the worker next to their wizard. They get a new adventure card, so we have to roll and see what that roll is. It's a 2, so they get the adventure card for that symbol, and these cards will give them extra victory points at the end of the game. And there is no tile up here, so this has to go in here. In actual fact, I have done something wrong, which I will explain. Until I regroup, it's actually classed as a friendly land, so there will be no battles amongst anybody. So I think this will stay in here, and that just the iron golem would stay where it is. So we'll just put that back. It hasn't made any difference to the game and things at the minute, because as I say, until I regroup, that it's a friendly land and there are no battles. So it's back to the ghosts again. I've had my sorry, they've had their second go, so it's now back to me for my third. So again, I've got a worker here. Where can I go? Let's try. Let's go over here, and we'll take this. And what I'm going to do, because you can only ever have 4 treasure tokens, I'm going to start cashing these in. So I'm going to get a coin, I'm going to get 2 more swords. You can do this at any time in your turn, and 2 more potions. So the Ghost Watcher comes into the realm where I've last placed a unit, and we roll to see which card they're going to do. It's this one. Again, they can't put a worker to the right because there isn't a realm there at the moment, although the card says place a new realm. So what we'll do, we'll actually place that here. We'll place it here, sorry, because it has to touch 2 other tiles, and their worker will have to go into the same realm as myself because it can't move to the card on the right. And we'll put that card back in there and draw a new one. So now it's back to me. I haven't got any workers or any other units currently that I can pull back. So what I'm going to do, that I can put out. So I'm going to pull back stroke regroup. And then when you do this, you can place them onto your home card and you can do certain actions. Now, if there is a worker symbol, that means any of your units can do it. But if it has a specific symbol, then only that specific unit can take that action. And some of the adventure cards will have unit specific pictures on them, and only those units can actually perform those actions when you're regrouping. So my first one is going to come back here, and I'm going to go on to the dwell symbol, which means I'm going to pay 3 potions, and I'm going to dwell with this particular worker here. And we do that by putting this sort of roof tile onto the meeple, and it sits in the symbol there. And because I've done that, I'm now immediately going to score points, and you score points for, you get 2 points for every ruin tile that is adjacent to a tile that you are constructing a dwelling. So I'm going to get 6 points there, so that moves me up to 7. If any of the other tiles at the time of doing that had any dwellings, whether they were mine or any of my opponents, if it was a sort of 3, 4, 5 player game, then you would also score additional 2 points for every realm adjacent that had a dwelling of anybody's colour on a tile adjacent to the tile that you are just building the dwelling in. So for example, if I had 3 more hexes here and they all had dwellings, I'd have scored 12, not 6 points. But 6 is quite a good start, so quite happy with that. And then what you can also do is you can regroup, and you can either summon a new worker or you can gather more resources. At the minute, I think the benefit is because I've now lost a worker, because once they've dwelled and made that dwelling, that worker stays there for the whole game. It doesn't, it can't be attacked, it can't do anything. It generates a dice in any battles in the realm it's in, or any adjacent realm if you are in that battle, but it cannot be removed, and nobody else can build a dwelling in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use one of the swords as a resource, and I'm going to pay for another worker to come out, and each one of these that you buy is going to actually cost you slightly more. So the first new worker costs you 1 resource, which is the 4th one that you have available. The 5th one will cost you 2, and the 6th one will cost you 3. But obviously getting those out is quite imperative if you want to try and finish the game off by building your last dwelling. You have to obviously get those workers out into your ready area to be able to use them, and then once you've used all of your actions, the others simply come off any of the adventure cards, including your own, that you've used them on for the regrouping purposes, and they go back into your ready area to be used again. So now it's back to the ghosts, and they will start from where they are. So number 6, so the wizard, and it says again move down to the right, but it can't, so it's going to go into here. Now what happens there is that If I now roll a 6 again, there are no workers or units available for the ghost to use, so that is when the ghosts will start to regroup, and they will come back, and basically they score 2 points for any unit that is on a dungeon tile at the time that they regroup. They will also get a couple of these because they've gone into these areas, so we'll add these in, which we should have done earlier. So they get bonuses because they cover up these squares on their board, and they also will now move up on the glory track, and they will get 2 points. That puts them on 4. Because I've regrouped, I also go on to the start of the glory track, and now out on the board, anytime a combat is due to take place, it will actually take place now because we are both on the glory track. So in a multiplayer game where you're not playing as the ghosts, and this is obviously the solo game, when the last person regroups and puts their token onto the glory track, from the next person's go, that's when combat will start. So up until that point, until the last person is on the glory track, Eldervale is a peaceful realm and no battles take place. So it's back to me. So I can go into any of the realms here, including ones that I've been in before. We should actually have put some tokens out on the board on this particular tile when it came out, so we'll do that now, and then let's see where we're going to go. I think we'll have a potential of a little battle over here, because whenever there is a placement of a unit from me, if a ghost unit can move in and fight, it will do so every single time. So I get to take an action, so I'm going to take this because it's going to give me a potion and a scroll when I cash that in. Then the ghost will move in, and then we're going to have a battle. Each worker produces a single dice, so they will get 1, I get 1, and I get an extra 1 because I've got the dwelling. And it's literally roll the dice and whoever gets the highest. So if I get a 5 and a 4 and they get a 6, they're going to win because it's the highest dice. If both of the first dice are equal, then I'm going to win because I've got a second dice and they haven't, and whatever my score is obviously going to be better because they haven't got a dice. So there you go. Talked that one up. So the ghost scored a 6 and I got a 4 and a 1, so I lose my worker to the underworld. And the ghosts go up on the glory track, and they get, or would normally get, 2 resources of their choice, but they don't take resources in the game. They take magic cards, and they don't use the magic cards as such, other than the fact that every one of those that they have at the end of the game is a single victory point for them. So that's an extra couple of victory points they've just got simply by moving up on the glory track. I get a sword for being killed off into the underworld, and that's the end of combat. So it's quite simple. You just roll all of the dice, and if somebody scores a 6 and nobody else does, even if they've got just 1 dice against 5, they are going to win the combat. It's as simple as that. So quite a nice easy system to use. So now we're back to the ghost's turn. So they roll the dice. It's a 2, so it's here. So they're going to take another worker. So the watcher would have been over here. Again, they can't do anything here because they can't move round. It also says construct a dwelling, but they can't do that either because none of the areas around that hex are actually dwellable because they're all ruin tiles. So simply all that happens is they get a second worker in that particular hex. So the only benefit of that is if a card comes out to build a new area, a new realm, that potentially they could move into there and do combat later on. So they get a new card, and that's the end of that particular turn for them. So for myself, I think what we're going to do here is quite a tough one, because wherever I go it's going to trigger a battle, and it depends whether I want to fight the Iron Golem or I want to fight the Chaos Beast. I could move straight into the realm with the Chaos Beast, which means I'd fight it on my own, but I would automatically lose the worker even if I won the battle. The Iron Golem, I could put it in there, but again I wouldn't get any worker dice, and I'd have to use my swords and hope to win that way. So I think that's potentially what I'm going to do, because I'm going to bring one of the ghost workers in as well, so that's going to free up that particular realm, and he's also going to lose that worker because it's not going to be able to roll any dice. So I'm going to go in here, take this treasure token. That's immediately going to bring the golem in and this ghost worker. As I say, the ghost worker can't roll any dice, doesn't use swords, so that's automatically going to go into the underworld. And I'm going to have to use the swords, so I've got 3 of those. So I get to roll 3 dice and the golem gets to roll 4, and again it's literally highest dice wins, and then you sort of pair up those dice. So I've got a 6, a 5 and a 2, and unfortunately the golem has got a 6, a 5 and a 2 as well, but their third dice is actually a 3. So the golem wins on the basis that his 3 is higher than my 2. So again I lose, goes into the underworld, I get another sword for my trouble, but again at the minute I've got no units out on the board, and when they come back from the underworld they can't be used on your home board and any other adventure cards to do action. So I've got to be very careful what I do next, because I'm going to be putting him out there, and wherever I go there's going to be a battle either against the golem or just on its own against ghost workers. But we'll see what happens. The watcher will go into there because that's where I placed my worker, and we'll see what happens on his go. So that's a 4. So he's going to come down into the mill, because that is where the card is saying he needs to place. But we also get to place a new realm. Ooh. We've got, we've got this, so we could put that up there. We'll put another stack of tokens on here, and it's actually my go now because that's the end of their go. That goes onto the discard pile, and we take a new card into there. So I'm actually going to take advantage of that. I'm going to move up here and get another token, and I'm going to start to cash these in again. So on here I get a potion and a scroll. On this one I get another gold coin, and they are wild resources, so you can use those for anything. And this one is a scroll and basically a hammer. It's a tool, so I get one of each of those to place. So I've built up a few there, and it's back with the ghosts. There's nothing to do and move about apart from the watcher goes in there. That's a 5. Their dragon comes out. It can't go in here because there is no thing there. So it's going to go here, and because there's no realms adjacent to it that has any of their workers, actual workers in, it also doesn't construct a dwelling. So we've got that. But what does happen here is unfortunately the dragon has come out. It has to go into my tile because it couldn't go into one that wasn't there, so it sits in where the watcher is, and it's going to actually cause a battle. The dragons get 3 dice, I only get 1, but unfortunately for the ghost this time, I've scored a 6 on the 1 dice I've got, and his highest was a 4, so his dragon goes into there. I get to go up on the glory track, so I get 2 victory points for doing that, which is quite good. And we're back to the ghosts. So now if I roll a 4, 5 or a 6, the ghosts are going to start to regroup. But they get a 3, so it goes here. So their thing goes here. It's going to take one of these. That goes on the board like that. It gets another magic card. That's what that symbol does. So that's scored them another victory point. That comes off, and that's their next card. So they've only got 1 more unit that they can actually place, and if we do roll a 1, 2 or 3, it will go out on the board somewhere, and then for the following turn, no matter what happens, they will regroup. But they could regroup after my regroup, which is going to happen now, simply because I haven't got anything else I can place out on the board. I've got nothing to be able to sort of dwell with, but what I have got now is an abundance of actual bits and pieces in my tray. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring out what I'm going to do is bring out my dragon by summoning. So I've got a gem. I'm going to use a coin as a wild, and also it's a scroll, and my dragon then becomes available for me to use in the next round. That worker then comes across, and I also get the 2 back from the underworld. So for this turn I've got 3 normal workers and a dragon. So I've started to build up obviously bits and pieces here that I can start to sort of put out on the board, and the dragon obviously is very good for combat. So if I want to actually try and take anything on in the game, that gives me a better chance of doing that. So let's see what happens. We've rolled a 5, so the ghosts will regroup. So everything comes back as normal, but because they've got 1 on a ruin tile, they are going to score 2 points for that. So that puts them on 6, and then literally everything else comes back, including stuff from the underworld, and they are ready to go again with a full complement of units from their next go. So they don't put anything out because they're regrouping. Those cards stay the same, so it's back to me. So again, let's see what we're going to do here. Perhaps need to try and avoid straight away getting anywhere close to some of these things, because the beast is going to kill me off whatever I do. If you go to the dungeon, you can bring out a new realm, but you also have to have the ability of buying one of the adventure cards. You have to have at least the resources available to get whatever it says on one of the adventure cards and purchase that card. And if you can't, then you can't go into the dungeon tile. Luckily at the minute I think I can, because I've got a couple of scrolls here. So I'm going to go onto the dungeon, pay my 2 and take a new card. That is a engraved door, and basically when I return my workers on a regroup, I could regroup onto here and I get a tool instead of potentially getting a potion symbol. But they also will score points at the end of the game. But whilst I'm doing that, also the golem is going to move into there and it's going to cause a battle. It gets 4 dice. I could spend a sword, which I'm going to, just in case. So I get 1 dice to its 4 because the worker doesn't generate any. However, because I've got a dwelling in a realm next to it, I get a 2nd dice. So I'm 2 dice to 4. And I have managed to defeat the iron golem by scoring a 6, and it scored 3 2s and a 1. So the iron golem is defeated, and that doesn't come back into the game. And for defeating that, I have a choice. I can either go up onto up one on the track there, or I can move up one on the glory track. I think I'm going to move up on the glory track because that's going to give me an additional 2 resources. Now you can't take coins because they are wild, so you have to choose actual resources at the time. And I think what I'm going to do is take a couple of gems. I haven't got any of those currently, so that was a nice little win for me. And the iron golem is out of the game once they're killed off, unless somebody plays a card to say to bring one back that has been defeated. They're out of the game. They won't come out again because there's only 1 hex tile in each of the element tiles that has the monster symbol on them, so it will only ever come out once, unless, as I say, there's a card or something that you play that allows you to put it back into the game, and it can come back out again at some point. If it comes back out again, it will go back onto the realm tile, unless again something tells you to put it, or you can place it somewhere else on the board. So that was my go. So we're back to the ghosts. It's a 5, so it's the worker here in the middle. Basically we get to place that on the fortress, and we get to shuffle all of the discard pile back into the deck. So any of those that have come out before that might have been useful for the ghosts at some point are now back in the game earlier than using all of the deck up, and then they get a new one. So back to myself. The watcher should be over here actually. They went onto that tile because it specifically said go onto that specific tile rather than a tile adjacent to the watcher. So again, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take the 2 potions and I'm going to immediately cash those in, I think. So have a bit of a plan for that. Again, the watcher goes across here, so that's where we will do any particular sort of calculations from. And that's good because although it would say it's here, it says also to construct a dwelling. They don't have one. There's nothing up there, so it's going to go into that realm there, and there's going to be a battle, which is unfortunate because I was hoping to dwell into there, so I need to win this to be able to stay there. And I don't, so I lose that to the underworld. I do gain a sword, and they go up on the glory track, because every time you win a battle you go up on the glory track. They also get to go up on any one of these realms, so we'll push them up on that. Okay, so it's back to me. Let's see. I'm going to go over here with the dragon and take these and get another 2 swords straight away. That will also bring this guy over here, and there will instantly be another battle, and this time I get 3 dice to his 1. He hasn't got anybody in the underworld. If he had people in the underworld, they also generate dice in a battle, and I win this time because I've got a 6 and a 3 and a 2, and all he scored was 2. So he goes in there. I go up on the glory track. Again, I can move up on one of these. Again, I'll move up on the one that I'm on, because when you get to the end of any particular element track, you get to take the orb if you're the first person, and you can use those orbs either on cards, or you can use them on the orb reward track, and you can get additional resources, or you can score more victory points. So that was the end of my turn. So let's see where he's going to go. He's going to do a 2, and he's going to actually go into the dungeon. So that's going to generate another battle, but he does get a card. We roll and see which card. He gets a red card. So again, he's going to take that, and there's going to be a battle here, 1 dice each. Actually, he gets a second dice because that's going to move in. I get a second dice because I've got the adjacent dwelling, so we've got 2 dice each. He scored a 6 and a 5, I scored a 6 and a 4, so he wins. I go to the underworld, he goes up, he takes the orb, because he's the first one to that. Which is a bit of a shame, but that's how it goes. So I'm over here, he's got nobody left, I've got a worker, so I'm going to go in here and take another potion, so I'll cash that in straight away. Back to the ghost. That should have had a new card, and this is what I was saying earlier. So this is his worker is going to go onto the portal, and it says choose 1 destroyed monster and return it to its lair. Any units or other monsters in the lair are sent to the underworld. So the destroyed golem is going to come back out again. Nothing's in there, but those automatically, actually no, they don't go into there because there's no battle. It would come the other way at some point. So that's come back out. That's a new card. So I have not got any workers left to bring back, sorry, to put out, so I'm going to start to regroup. My first one is going to be with the dragon, and I'm going to build my second dwelling. And it's going to be in here, and it's going to cost me 3 potions. That sits in there. Cost me 3, but again I'm going to score only 2 points this time because there's just 1 ruin that it is close to, and there are no other dwellings out on the board that are adjacent. So now I've got 2. So the dragon comes back off my board. I get my 2 guys back from the underworld. They can't do anything, and it's over to the ghosts. Their warrior's going to come out. It can't go up here, so it's going to sit in there. It does get a new adventure card, so we roll again. It's a 3, it's going to be one of the white ones. And that's going to be that for their go. Put a new card out for next turn. So again, back to me. I start a new sort of turn sequence. I'm going to do something a bit sneaky here. I'm going to go to the portal, which is going to bring the Chaos Beast in. I still get to do actions before any battles take place. So I'm going to do an action where I'm going to pay a resource, or well, actually two resources potentially. I'm going to pay 2 hammers and a sword, and I'm going to bring out my warrior. The battle is then going to take place. We're both going to lose these because the Chaos Beast is going to automatically send us to the underworld. We will generate dice, so I'm going to get 1 for this, and the ghosts are going to get 1 for here and 1 that's in the underworld, so they're going to generate 2. I've got 2 swords which I'm going to add into the mix, so I'm going to get 3 dice. So let's see what we get as a score. So I've scored a 5, a 4 and a 4, and they've scored 2 4s. So to beat me, the chaos, because the ghosts can't win because I've beaten them, they've scored a 6, 2 5s and a 4, so the Chaos Beast is going to win. So we're going to lose those anyway, but there was a possibility that if I'd have won that, the Chaos Beast would have been defeated, but we would have also gone to the underworld, but I would have potentially got a reward for defeating it. But as such, we've just lost them all, but that does stop him winning any points at the end of his next regroup for having a person on that particular hex tile. So that was my go, and the Watcher would come down here, and they've scored 6. Again, they can't do anything here. They've got nobody to construct, so their worker is going to have to go into here and fight again. This time it's going to get 3 dice. It scored a 2 and 2 1s. Let's just roll 3. Yeah, so again it loses and ends up in the underworld.